I never imagined my past as a Navy SEAL would have any relevance in a quiet suburban neighborhood. But one afternoon, it all came roaring back in the most brutal way possible. Three fake cops, dressed in tactical vests, stormed onto my property pretending to enforce HOA rules. And one of them made the worst mistake of his life. He slapped my wife, Sarah. By the time the day was over, their faces looked nothing like when they arrived. Before we dive in, drop a comment with the country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story spreads. It began that morning when Sarah stepped outside to water the garden. She noticed a black SUV circling the block several times before parking across the street. Out stepped three men, all wearing dark tactical vests with shiny police patches stitched on. At first glance, they looked official, but Sarah immediately caught the red flags. Their belts were cheap nylon, the holsters were plastic, and none of them carried radios. Real officers never show up without comms. The tallest of the three walked straight toward our yard. "Ma'am, HOA compliance inspection," he barked, flashing a badge so fake it looked like it came from a toy aisle. Sarah kept her cool. "Since when does the HOA hire police officers?" The second man sneered. "We're not hired, lady. We're the law here." Sarah warned them they were trespassing and told them to leave immediately. Instead, the third one stepped closer, hand resting on his knockoff baton. When Sarah pulled out her phone to record, he slapped it from her hand. Then, in a move that made my blood run cold, he slapped Sarah across the face. That's when I came outside. I had been in the garage, sorting through some of my old gear when I heard her shout. Seeing Sarah holding her cheek while these clowns puffed up their chests flipped a switch inside me. In an instant, I went from neighborly patience to combat readiness. I walked straight up and said, "You boys picked the wrong house. You've got 5 seconds to tell me who sent you." The tall one smirked. "The HOA president told you've been ignoring notices. We're here to make sure you comply." He tried to stare me down. I've dealt with mercenaries, warlords, and insurgents. A suburban poser in a knockoff vest doesn't even make the list. I told Sarah to go inside and lock the door. She didn't hesitate. She knew what was coming. Then I leaned closer, my voice low and sharp. "Touch my wife again, and you won't walk out of here." They laughed, but I saw the cracks forming in their bravado. I demanded identification. They refused. Real police must identify themselves. That's when I knew for certain they weren't just trespassers. They were impersonating officers, a federal felony. And right there, in broad daylight, in front of half the neighborhood, I decided this wasn't gonna slide. I planted my feet, squared my shoulders, and locked eyes. The stance was instinct, honed from years of deployment. The laughter faltered. The tall one jabbed a finger at me. "You think you can ignore HOA rules? Your truck, your fence, those so-called military dogs? We're here to enforce compliance." A dark chuckle slipped out. "First, I park legally. My fence is city code. And those dogs are ADA-protected service animals. Second, I stepped closer, forcing him back. You're trespassing and impersonating officers. That's 10 years in prison if you're lucky." The shorter thug tried to act tough. "You can't threaten us. We'll cuff you right here." He fumbled with the Velcro on his belt, pulling out a pair of toy cuffs that wouldn't hold a teenager. That was it. My patience was gone. I moved fast. My left hand twisted his wrist until the cuffs fell, and my right elbow snapped into his jaw with surgical precision. He collapsed on the lawn, groaning. The second one charged, swinging his baton. I sidestepped, seized his arm mid-swing, and used his own momentum to flip him over my shoulder. He hit the concrete with a sickening thud, silencing the neighbors who had gathered. The leader froze, panic in his eyes. "You're assaulting officers!" he shouted. I closed the distance, so close he could smell the sweat on me. "No, I'm stopping 3 criminals from assaulting my wife. Big difference." Sarah reappeared at the door, phone recording. "Already called the sheriff," she shouted. The leader cursed and bolted for the SUV. I wasn't letting him go. I yanked him back by the vest and slammed him onto the hood. He struggled, but he had no training, just attitude and a knockoff badge. By the time the deputies arrived, 2 fakes were rolling on the ground in pain, and the third was face down with my knee in his back. "Hands where we can see 'em," the deputies shouted, guns drawn. I raised my hands and stepped back, while Sarah pointed at the 3 imposters. "Those are the guys. They hit me. They pretended to be cops." The deputies ripped off their fake gear, cuffed them, and hauled them away. Under questioning, the leader cracked. He admitted the HOA president had paid them cash to teach us a lesson. That's when I realized this wasn't just harassment, it was a conspiracy. At the station, the imposters looked pathetic. Their fake gear bagged as evidence, their wrists cuffed for real this time. Under pressure, they admitted everything. Karen Ellis, the HOA president, had hired them to rough me up, intimidate Sarah, and scare us into compliance. When the deputies asked if I wanted to press charges, I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Impersonating officers is a felony. And assaulting my wife? They'll pay for that too. Karen wasn't done. By the very next day, she filed a lawsuit against me. She claimed I'd used excessive force and damaged the HOA's reputation. She even argued her thugs were security contractors. My lawyer nearly laughed. He said, "This is a gift. We'll countersue for harassment, assault, and conspiracy. And with Sarah's video, she doesn't stand a chance." The court date came fast. Karen sat smugly in her blazer, whispering to her lawyer. Sarah sat beside me, steady and calm, with our attorney ready to dismantle their lies. The judge asked the HOA's lawyer to begin. Their argument crumbled instantly once Sarah's video played on the courtroom screen. It showed everything, the slap, the fake badges, my warnings, the assaults, all in broad daylight. The judge leaned back, unimpressed. "These men are criminals, and you, Mrs. Ellis, hired them. Not only is your lawsuit dismissed, but I'm sanctioning you for abuse of the legal system." My attorney rose. "Your Honor, we're filing a counterclaim today. Conspiracy to commit assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and HOA harassment. My clients deserve restitution." Karen went pale. Her false confidence shattered as reality hit. By the time the gavel fell, her lawsuit was not only dismissed, but she was personally liable for damages. Even the other HOA board members turned their backs on her. Her empire of intimidation collapsed in a single afternoon. As for the 3 imposters, they were denied bail, facing multiple felony charges. After court, the sheriff shook my hand. He said, "Good thing you kept your cool. Most people would have frozen. You probably saved your wife from something far worse." I nodded, pulling Sarah close. Karen thought fear and lies could control us. Instead, she lost everything.